In previous, hello, myself Sunil Ramakrishna. Here basically are discussing about India. In India account, basically we are discussing about SBI account, Amazon account, and after 2 days, basically the big earthquake is going to happen in India. So in this previous video, basically we saw that basically who are the customer of SBI, and this is fact basically. SBI basically is telling that basically we are clean basically, we are completely clean basically. But it's not like that basically. If you are telling that basically someone, अबे ये तो कितना गंदा है, but you see तू कितना गंदा है. SBI how much dirty basically you see basically. You see how many basically ganda you are basically. One person told that India is clean basically. India is clean basically. India basically gives punishment to people basically. Supreme Court, High Courts. But see you basically how much clean you are basically. Before giving any punishment to anybody else basically, you see what you are basically. Then basically give the punishment. How much dirty basically India is, that you see basically. Then basically say that basically that person is dirty. That person is dirty. So before that you have to be very clean basically. And in this basically your partner is America and Russia and Europe basically. So already there, and lots of people say that ये तो कितने clean है. They are basically very clean people basically. American basically people are how much clean basically. अरे that suit boot में आया भाई. They basically came in suit boot. That means they are clean basically. So one person told that the World Trade Center basically which was hit by by two plane. For that basically money was collected by the cricket industry basically, and the Indian governments and the public basically how much support this basically. That means they are also equally involved in this. By default basically they are also involved in this, na basically, because they are watching the cricket. That means by default they are also involved in this. That is World Trade Center, which was hit by two plane, which was hit by two plane, and lots of basically terror activities has happened basically. So one person told that yeah basically how you track this basically. So that bank basically exists. That bank basically who collected the money basically, and the software which collected the money that exists basically. That 100% will exist basically. If they can collect 90,000 crore in 1995, that match was basically between New Zealand and India basically. Just so you know, that match was between India and New Zealand. And in that, basically, I think India won the series. Basically, in that, basically, they collected 90,000 crore. It's not a small amount. Basically, 90,000 crore is a big amount. So to hit World Trade Center, basically, they have spent 90,000 crore. But there is no money for Sunil Arnair. Basically, they can spend 90,000 crore, but they can't basically give money to Sunil Arnair. So BCCI group basically spending 90,000 crore to hit the World Trade Center. You can just imagine basically what is cricket. In that basically India has collected the money basically. In that basically Indian bank was used. In that basically Indian police basically was used. In that basically that time basically the political party who was ruling in the central and state basically they have collected the money basically for World Trade Center basically hit by two plane. So one person told that ये क्या यार basically ये इंडिया है basically this is India, and India basically gives punishment to people basically. भाई इसने वीडियो देखा, इसने he basically saw some girl basically in internet basically give punishment. He basically cried basically because he got the birth basically. So you can't cry also basically. After birth basically you can't cry also basically. Listen, a child basically you can't cry basically after birth because India rules basically tell that. So one person told that what is India? Yeah, basically. Lots of people say India, India, India. This is India. They are collecting money for World Trade Center basically. World Trade Center 1985, 1995 basically the World Trade Center was hit by two planes and many incidents basically happened. For that basically they collected 90,000 crore. 90,000 crore is a small amount basically. So one person told that ये cricket मतलब क्या है cricket basically. One the person basically asked the literally the question basically. What is cricket basically? And in that basically one of the Canadian person basically I displayed one photo basically. One person basically was has actually created the software of that 90,000 collection money basically. On the base of runs, wicket, everything basically came to each other. So it was one big formula basically that also you can see. And that person basically might be one big personality basically. That photo basically I displayed. That was a Canadian person. And people says that Canada is clean basically. And if the person like Sunil Arnar basically applies, then they tell that they basically tell that भाई तू गंदा है basically. भाई तू कितना गंदा है वो देख. How much bad basically you are that you see basically. Then basically I argue some to other people basically. If you apply USA for H1 visa, why he is basically bad person basically. How much bad you are basically that you think basically. World Trade Center basically which was heated, it was basically not only the Indian police basically. Your FBI also basically was involved. Your government was involved basically. Because without government support, that was not possible. So government was involved, yeah, basically. So how basically USA can say that basically Sunil R. Nair ganda hai? How much ganda you are that you see the first. Then one of the person told them, "तू तो पूरा नंगा हो गया भाई." One person basically asked Sunil R. Nair basically, "भाई I basically not nanga basically. India is totally nanga." One of the person told that this is the fact of India basically, and you have to accept the fact basically. That's why basically SBI Group created many banks to secure themselves basically. But you secured themselves. Yourself basically you have secured. One person told that basically before giving any punishment to anybody person basically. For example, some group is basically cyber group basically is giving punishment to me. So before that basically you see yourself basically up to what level task basically your people basically are doing. In that basically cyber group was also involved in this 1995 money collection. That was that time basically internet was just started. That time 90,000 crore was collected. Yeah, basically. So you can imagine basically 5G, 6G basically was launched in 1995. But in front of public basically when it came? In 2023. And you are telling that basically Sunil R. Nair Nanga hai. Nanga was Sunil R. Nair in this video basically. So how much Nanga you are, that you see basically. For World Trade Center, basically, you are collecting money through cricket, basically. That also basically 1995. And you are telling that basically Sunil R. Nair is Nanga. Nanga means he is a bad person, basically. So how much bad you are, you first thing, basically. How much basically the Canadian group are basically, that you think basically was. That software basically was created by Canada, basically. One of the person. You basically saw that photo, basically. So he basically got big push. Why? Because he has collected 90,000 money. But for what? To hit World Trade Center. And to get visa in Canada, basically, you can't get a normal person basically can't get a visa basically. If Sunil or Nair basically like person basically will apply, they will say that basically by give 20 lakh, give 30 lakh, give 50 lakh, and Canada income is coming from this here, this all area. First example basically I already told. Entire India's computer getting on. How basically? Through one of the land basically in Canada, where basically all Sardar basically are staying. Khalistani. And about Khalistani basically I have already told. So one of the person told that India बहुत गंदा है. One of the person told that भाई ये सुनील तो बहुत गंदा है. बट तू पहले देख तू कितना गंदा है. Before arguing anyone basically, first you self basically see basically how much ganda you are basically. Ganda means bad basically. So how much bad basically is India that you see basically. And in India basically they apply cyber rule, that rule basically. That is quick. One person basically watch some video basically, they basically apply cyber rule basically. That इसने ये देखा भाई, इसने ये देखा. But that World Trade Center तूने नहीं देखा जब हिट हुआ था that time basically. That time cyber group basically was not there. That time cyber group basically was supporting that World Trade Center group basically. And people basically are telling that cyber group. So you can just understand basically how much ganda the system is basically, how much bad the system is. And system basically say that basically we are ganda. But how much bad you are that you see na first basically. India system basically how much bad it is that you see basically. Then you argue to other basically. First you have to think yourself basically. Supreme Court basically have to think yourself basically. How much bad you are basically. Because when that money was collecting, that was the 90,000 crore, you was not there basically. You basically was not knowing that 90,000 crore. If you are collecting some 1 lakh, 2 lakh or also basically, immediately basically bank gets the information that some 1 lakh rupees has collected. ये तो 90,000 करोड़ बात था basically. It might have reached to the Supreme Court basically. That time basically Supreme Court has done anything. And you basically bans one normal person. So you can basically only do the stuff to normal person basically. But you can't do for that people who basically hit the World Trade Center. They collected the 90,000 crore also. And they implemented also. For that basically you can't do anything. And you basically can give lesson basically. You can create the lesson. भाई देखो ये जा रहा है वो कितना गंदा है तू कितना गंदा है वो देख how much bad Supreme Court is that you see basically how much gold bad basically high courts are how much bad basically the governments are basically because when money was collecting that time government was supporting the banks basically collect the money like this basically they collected 90,000 crore. This is just rough number basically. In really basically it might be totally different, but it would be more than that. Just a minute. So unnecessary basically publics are getting trouble basically. The innocent person, the people who don't know anything basically, they gets in trouble. If anybody basically don't speak anything basically, that means that doesn't mean that basically he don't know anything. He is fool basically. That doesn't mean that basically. He might be knowing everything basically. That's why basically he is quiet. Few people say that भाई ये तो कुछ बोल नहीं रहा. He's not telling anything basically. One of the HR person basically told me basically this, that he basically don't speak anything basically. Because why? Because I know the entire system. Basically. How much ganda you all are basically. In this basically The people who were basically hired for the World Trade Center, they were basically from human resource department basically. That also big level post people basically hired that people basically. And human resource department basically is telling that ये गंदा है basically. Ban his resume basically. You have recruited that people basically. How much ganda you are basically. Nobody is banning you basically. American government basically don't know that they have recruited you. You only recruited the people basically. American government only recruited. American Human Resource Department, Indian basically and India and America government basically collaboration group basically like Kolabara companies there that is connected with the India and America basically. Like this basically many companies are basically in India. They collected the resources basically. And this group basically say that basically इस resume को ban कर दो. Nobody is doing ban to that software company basically. Nobody is doing ban to that human resource department basically. The people who are innocent basically they gives keeps on trouble basically. So this is India, that is very ganda. India is very bad basically, that I am telling you. India is very bad basically. And this everything basically Bollywood people basically don't know. Bollywood people basically don't know. They basically can't display everything, but they are also basically telling that भाई हमको तो जिंदा रहना है भाई, otherwise basically the government will kill us basically. They are correct basically, they will kill basically. That is if they you will display the secrecy of India basically, then India will kill the people basically. Because there are many bad people also for India support basically. Shooters are there, many people basically are there. Supreme Courts basically connected with the shooters basically. That are the gun shooters. So this is India basically. And lots of people says that yeah India, this is India, and this is fact. If anybody says bad about India, they basically entire political people basically attacks him. But see the fact basically what India is. After that only basically you have to tell. After that only basically you have to do the argument. Somebody is displaying that sun solar system basically is coming from sun basically, but in real basically it's coming from human energy basically. They are displaying it basically. Self, see basically. The people who don't know anything basically, they will really say that basically "यार, sun से आ रहा है." According to that basically they are getting the money. Sun solar system is a big project basically of India. In India only I think basically it's getting used. No other country is using it. So you can just imagine basically up to what level stuff basically are there. Just a minute. So you can just imagine basically. One person told that भाई ये तो he basically watched porn video basically. He basically drinks beer. But they are doing porn videos, drinking basically beers, but they are not killing the people basically. In this basically cricketer basically has collected 90,000 money, and there basically more than 5,000 people basically died in World Trade Center. Here basically that person basically is just simply drinking beer basically, nothing else basically is doing. He's just watching one video basically, nothing else basically is doing. But you have killed 5,000 people basically. That is nothing basically. That is not crime basically. Cricketer basically are not criminal basically because they have collected the money basically. Nobody can do the argument to that people basically. But the people who drink beer, porn watch, they basically watch the porn video, they immediately take the action basically. But nobody is there to take the action against cricketer basically. They have killed 5,000 people basically. World Trade Center basically. Nobody's tell to anyone basically. Nobody's basically can do the argument to cricketer because cricketer basically is getting support from Indian Army only basically. So you can just imagine. For example, Indian people basically are going to Dubai. Dubai police basically gives the support to them. If they are basically moving to USA, FBI will give the security to them. So you can just imagine basically what is the system basically. What is the system that you see? And this is fact basically. Whatever things are fact, that is fact. So in this basically, this video basically is most important for the software industry only basically. Because the software, I will take one example basically. Why basically I told software industry? Because the Canada basically collected 90,000 money, right? So he's basically also involved. That is 100% sure in World Trade Center. This is fact. But here the main thing is Canada basically is giving the power supply to India's all computers. If that land will get end, Indian basically have to live without computer because to connect with the computer energy basically the power supply it takes many time. It takes huge number of time. So India partners are Americans, European, then the Canadian. So one person told that yeah India, this is India basically. And one person basically uh, watched some mafia group's photo. Immediately, basically, the cyber cell basically groups calls. They basically how they calls basically. Do you know basically? We are basically calling from insurance agency. Like this, basically they calls. They feel that basically everybody are basically fool people basically. But the company basically where you are working basically, they are doing which type of activity that you see basically. What India is doing that you see in the first basically. After that, basically, do the verification. Basically. What is India doing that you see first. After that, basically, you call the people basically and give the punishments. So one person told that what India should get the punishment. Just a minute. So one person told that that is basically done by the cricket. Na, basically. Cricket is also basically supposed to get. But in India, basically, 22 percentage basically investment basically in the land basically of India that is done by cricket basically. So how you can basically tell get out cricket? How basically you can say cricket you get out? That basically how they can say basically. Government can't say get out to cricket with it. Why? Because 22 percentage amount investment is a huge amount, and you have already taken the money. Investment is already done in the land. That means you are also involved in this World Trade Center hit. That was two plane. That was Parliament House, which was totally involved with it. But nobody is supposed to ask basically. Why? Because if you ask anyone, then you will get in trouble basically. You will get in trouble basically. Because police basically what I will take one example. In Mumbai basically, many crime basically happens. Right? That every basically crimes are that basically all crime basically are done on the base of Mumbai city direction only. Mumbai checks that only. Mumbai police basically checks that. Is any crime basically happening without our permission? So you can just imagine basically what is Mumbai police. Mumbai police means heart of India. That means India police. This is fact basically, yeah, about India basically. So before cleaning basically, before telling that basically he's very ganda, he's basically not clean. First you see what you are basically. What SBI is basically. That you see first. That you see first basically. After that basically argue with another argue basically do the argument with another people basically. Do the argument with another people basically. That means other people basically, not another basically. So you can just imagine basically. You are collecting money for World Trade Center. That was 95. That time they have collected 90,000 crore. So Abhi basically just now basically it's a digital world basically. Fully digital. So it might have reached to how much amount basically. How much amount basically it might have reached. So you can just imagine basically what is the condition of India. If one cricket basically is like this, sports basically, so other sector basically might be how much basically. And people says that you are ganda basically. Few people basically are telling, भाई ये तो बहुत गंदा है basically. What you are basically that impossible. What is SBI account? What is SBI bank? That you do the detail basically auditing. You will get basically which kind of person basically you are customers are. You cleans that people also that basically is also. And give the president post also basically. That is basically different thing. But you are totally ganda basically. SBI is totally ganda. Whoever basically might have created the SBI, but he basically might not have thought up to this level that basically we will be doing totally ganda thing. Basically. So this is totally naked of SBI bank. Basically. They are doing this whole task. If basically anybody do the arguments, then they basically can say basically a person basically is not a good person. So don't give him job basically. Don't give him job basically. Just a minute. So you can just imagine basically what is India basically. And this is fact about the India. And how basically Canada is running that also basically we have displayed. So India basically have many partners basically in this. If they feel that basically something basically wrong will happen, they immediately basically push Canada, push America, push Europe in front of the world. Nowadays basically they are using South Africa also basically. South Africa you go front. African group basically. Where basically Canada, Kenya basically lots of flood basically happened basically. They have sent to Africa basically in front basically. You go basically. Sometimes basically they send Dubai, Sharjah people basically, Ajman group basically. So you can just imagine basically what is India, what is Mumbai city. It seems to be perfect for Mumbai basically. It's the high tech, 100 floor building basically. But what they are doing inside that company basically. Nobody is supposed to, nobody basically is there to do the auditing of this whole task basically. Why? Because SBI Bank is like that basically. And SBI banks are controlled by RBI group basically. That are the Reserve Bank of India. So you can just imagine basically up to what level the bad things are. This everything is done. Basically. World Trade Center is done. Everything is done. 90,000 crore basically has collected. New Zealand and India basically both have played the match in 1995. In this, basically, the America was involved. So you can because without American support, basically, World Trade Center was not possible. So in that, basically, government also supported that group. Basically, just so you can just imagine basically how much hot is basically. It's hot. Basically. India is very hot. Hot means that hot, not basically. This hot. Basically. So one of the person told that this is about India. Basically. This is about India, and this is fact. You basically have to accept the fact. So before basically you are giving punishment to others, basically check yourself basically how much clean you are, how much clean you are basically that you check first. After that, basically give punishment to others basically because nowadays cricketer basically also have the authority to ban person basically. They basically go to the company and then basically they becomes a driver and then basically they say that basically if you are giving job to that particular person we are going to hit you. So that company never gives the job to that person. So you can just imagine basically what cricket is basically. And up to what level things basically are correct. And public basically are mad watching cricket basically. That is the main thing basically. So in that World Trade Center basically the public also involved basically. Because public is watching cricket. So 90,000 crore came into picture. And nowadays basically you can't stay without cricket. One day basically one for one time basically you will not eat anything basically. But you have to watch cricket. Basically. That is the blood cells basically which has created by few groups. Basically. So you can just imagine basically the power of Canada. Entire computers will get off basically. That land will disappear from Canada. But do you think basically the land will disappear basically? Something crack like this happen basically. But disappear basically land that is practically not possible. So as in that basically today world will end. So this would be the roadmap of the change basically. How basically the world will end. That land of Canada, computers of India that are around 800 crore. Just so one person told that if the SBI customers are like this, then how might be the managers? How basically might be the investors who are basically investing the money to SBI basically? That are big businessmen basically. Big businessmen basically are involving in this investment. Basically. It's not a small thing basically. It's a very big issue basically. It's not issue basically. It's a army fight basically. Armies basically are doing fight with each other basically. Because normal person basically can fight. Normal group basically can fight basically. For example, myself basically. If basically I basically applied for e-clearx company basically, right? And e-clearx company basically not given the job to me, but I have given the interview perfectly basically. Interview was perfectly, but they have not given the job. Why? That basically we don't know. But we can argue with the company basically. The e-clearx company basically they have more than 100 branch basically across the world. You can do the argument to the e-clearx company. No, basically you can't do argument. For example, I basically visited Eclairx long before basically I had given the interview. Interview was perfectly fine, but they have not given the job. Why? There might be some reason basically, and they are connected with the Canadian company. There are basically many companies basically who are connected with Canada. So Canada means fully involved in this everything basically. So that was 95. So currently also lots of match are ongoing basically. That you see, matches are ongoing, right? Basically, that means monies are getting collection. Money collection basically is happening. In this, basically, the Bollywood groups are also watching the cricket. That means they are also involved. That means they are also involved in this. Everything. If you are supporting anyone, that means you are involved in this. You are watching cricket. That means you are supporting that World Trade Center that was hit by two planes. And this is fact about India country. And you basically give trouble to normal public people who basically are so innocent. One person basically is not speaking anything, that doesn't mean that basically he's a fool basically. You can't say that basically "Oh, the fool है बे, बेवकूफ है बे, वो तो." He's a fool person basically, but it's not like that basically. It might possible that he might be knowing nothing basically, or other side basically might be he might be knowing everything basically of the system basically. What is India and what basically they are doing basically, and this everything basically is ongoing in front of government basically. Then you can imagine basically Narendra Modi Damodar Stadium is also there. Cricket stadium is there basically. Bolo. So what to tell now? How basically you can do the argument basically? Because in Ahmedabad basically Narendra Damodar Stadium is there basically, and he's a Prime Minister of India. तो कितना गंदा है? How much bad this is? More bad is basically coming basically. You just wait. More bad is coming basically. Up to what bad is basically I will display basically. What is up to what bad basically. So one person told that how much bad it is here. So one person told that this bad is basically India. And one person basically is trying for job. They basically use 100 types of problem basically. You have to pay this much money. You have to. You are basically interested in visa. You are interested in insurance. This that basically दुनिया भर का problem basically. And what is cricket? That is how much bad cricket is. That basically the main thing is it's supported by the police. Basically. That is the main thing. That is supported by the police department. Basically, you will not able to believe this. Because whenever the cricketer basically go to the stadium, basically police security is there. No, high tight security is there. So what to tell now? What to tell now? You can't tell anything. Well, because you are speechless basically. After this, basically knowing everything basically, you will not speak basically. You will basically become speechless. The fact about India country, and this is fact. And e-clearance is also basically connected with that Canadian country. If you want to do the auditing basically, you can do that. So there are many companies basically who are connected with Canadian group basically. And here basically Canada is one of the source basically. There are many sources of the country basically who are collecting the money basically for cricket basically. And they are doing which kind of task with that everybody knows. They have created lots of stuff basically. 22 percentage basically investment they have created basically. But see the dangerous task basically they are doing also. So to keep clean basically themselves to government basically tell that government tells that basically, we are basically clean here basically for cricket basically we can't spoil our name basically. But 22 percentage is already invested basically. So the person basically who are connected with the cricket basically they basically got this idea basically. That basically connected to goods basically. That actually saved cricket basically. How government can't do anything basically now. Why? Because 22 percentage investment is already done in the India land. So that was basically very dangerous task basically somebody has done. That was basically perfect plan basically that you can say. That in future basically governments track this business. So one of the person government know this basically. Government 100% might be knowing it. Because without government basically anything is basically going to happen basically. Without government permission basically the computer was installed basically in India. Basically. Rajiv Gandhi basically Rajiv Gandhi Prime Minister basically who actually installed computer in India. Basically. So he done this basically. So he know that basically Canada is the land basically where from where basically the entire India's computer power supply is coming. If that land will end, India software company will end. India software company will end in one just minute. But that will never happen. Why? Because in Canada basically the earthquake doesn't happen. There is no earthquake in Canada. There is no tsunami in Canada. There is no tufan in Canada. There is no lava blast in Canada. So the land basically which was prepared basically, which was uh, allocated basically for the power basically supply for the computer basically of the India that is 800 crore. That was the land basically where nothing happens basically. And this is the chain basically. This is the chain basically. This is going to connect you. And that basically is going to connect. So just a minute. One person basically told that basically, "अरे ये तो shooter है." He basically shoots the people. So don't basically don't walk with him, don't eat with him, don't basically talk to him. But here, cricketers see basically which kind of people basically they are. The public dies to speak basically to these people basically. So you can just imagine basically how the system is created basically. How the system is created, na, that you see basically. How the system is created. And this is fact, yeah. How the system is basically that basically is not basically magical thing basically. The World Trade Center basically, the group basically who hated the World Trade Center, the public basically are taking the autograph of that particular group basically. That is not strange basically. Public are taking autograph of that cricketer basically. So you can just imagine basically what is cricket. Basically, there is no word basically for me basically what actually cricket is. But this everything basically. So one of the person told that basically I understand only definition basically. So I basically can't create one definition also basically here. Yeah, basically. In my video basically lots of definitions basically are created basically. But here what to basically tell basically cricketing is basically collecting the money for terror activities with the help of Indian government, Indian armies. That basically should be definition with the help of Indian Supreme Courts, High Courts. That I have to write, and this will affect basically. So this should be definition. 1% of the people we basically understand only definition. So this is definition. Cricket is what? So you can just handle lots of people says that Sunil, yeah, don't speak anything. You are speechless. And if you basically watch any porn video or basically any simple basically if nowadays basically if in Rediff also basically if you watch any heroine's photo basically they create the cyber law basically comes into the picture, yeah. So people basically can't watch one Rediff also basically, yeah. So cyber law basically has created headache basically for India basically. So something basically you have to do basically with the cyber group because you are doing this terror activity, that terror activity. This also take as activity basically. Take this also activity. Take this also. So do basically some good task. So one person told that cricket trademark basically is only connected to the bad task. And people basically are taking autograph here. Basically, that basically is not very what to say basically. There is no word basically. There is no word basically for this. What basically word you will use here basically? That cricketer basically are into terror activity. They are collecting the money for terror, and public basically are taking the autograph. And one person basically who is a simple shooter basically he's having gun. He basically shooted a few people basically. For that basically public say that by the shooter hai. Basically we are not supposed to talk to him. We are not supposed to eat with him. Basically when he basically comes in front basically we have to change our road basically. So you can just imagine what public is basically. And this is public basically. यही है public. So one person told that really this is public address. So just a minute. There is one song basically that basically we are going to display here. So from that basically you can clear basically the public really know this everything basically. Then also basically they are taking autograph basically of the public. See basically. So this is public basically. So this song says that basically public know everything basically. So public basically are taking the autograph of cricketer. Basically. So one of the person to the cricketer basically know this basically. That is also a question basically. That they are collecting the money of this type of activity. They might not be knowing basically. Because up to that level basically they don't get the information. Basically. But they know that basically very dangerous task basically they are doing. Up to that level basically they gets the information that they are doing very dangerous task. Basically. So you can just imagine basically each player basically are connected with the set of businessmen. Basically. That person basically you can see that person basically is doing the betting. He is connected with this businessman basically. That person you can see yes basically, that is connected with this lady businessman. So in this basically ladies are also involved. Basically. So you can just imagine up to what level basically the direction basically India is going. Up to what direction basically India is doing. And one person basically is fighting for job and people basically said भाई ये तो लड़ाई कर रहा है भाई he is basically doing job fight basically for the job basically. But what you are basically doing that you think basically first. You are doing what basically? You just see basically. The businessman basically you are connected with that cricketers basically. What you are doing basically? You are basically doing what you that see basically. What you are doing. It's not very dangerous basically. So one person told that SBI is the most dangerous bank. Most dangerous bank also you can give the name basically. You can give the name as a most dangerous bank. So you can just imagine basically this everything is done basically. SBI Bank has created multiple banks. They periodically close the bank also basically. That also you basically you can just imagine basically. That also you imagine this. Just if they feel that basically something wrong basically internationally basically has happened from that bank because each transaction which happens to all the banks na basically, it connects to SBI one day. It is going to connect to SBI one day. So before it connects, they basically close that bank basically. It takes time basically. Auditing happens, lots of things basically happens. But ultimately it connects to SBI Bank. All banks transactions. Whatever bank is, small bank also basically are connected with SBI. So small banks also basically they feel that basically this basically might create problem to us. So they basically close that bank only because it will connect to SBI Bank. So periodically basically the audit happens and they decides basically the merging of transactions. So it's not so easy to create any bank also. That is also from this basically you can just imagine. And SBI group bank basically one of the person who is handling SBI basically. Who is the most dangerous thing basically is handling. If this everything basically leaks, then what are the things basically going to happen? But if it will be leak basically, then where basically it is going to leak? Lots of people say it will lead to USA, but USA is a partner of India. Europe is also partner. Russian group basically. Though I'm talking about the groups. Basically. American group means Singapore, Malaysia, these everything basically. Europe, sorry, the Dubai, everything basically came into. In Europe group also basically it's like that. So that's very dangerous. Which basically we are discussing here basically. This is most dangerous topic basically which we are discussing. So you can just imagine basically the world has already connected. This everything is already done basically. That is the main thing. Everything is done. So you can just imagine what is SBI, what is Indian government, what is cricket, what is public basically, what to tell basically. What to tell to public. What are banks, what are army groups, what basically they are. So you can just imagine basically what basically India is and what is the system of India. So in next video basically we are going to discuss a little bit more about this topic which is ongoing basically.